can do that right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, are we going?
We're good.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Great to see everyone this morning. And thank you, John, for hosting us. And we'll go ahead and do our entering in prayer. Come, divine will, come to reign in me. With this one act, I want to embrace my entire day. I want to embrace every thought, every word, every action, all the people I meet, the things I have to do, all my duties. I want all to be in your most holy will. I want to put my whole day right from this instant in your most holy will, so that should I be distracted, or should there be things I forget, they may all be done in your will. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful, and enkindle in them the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and they shall be created, and you shall renew the face of the earth. Remember your congregation, which you have possessed from the beginning. O Lord, hear my prayer, and let my cry come unto you. The Lord be with you, and with your spirit. Let us pray. O God, who has taught the hearts of the faithful, by the light of the Holy Spirit, grant us in the same Spirit to be truly wise and to ever rejoice in this holy consolation. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So this morning, we don't really have a topic as such, but what we did is ask everyone to kind of pick a reading that speaks to them or talks to them that they really like. And so we have a bit of a potluck here with the Divine Will. And the first reading that we're going to do is one of the early volumes. We're going to go in order of the years. So the first year is April, it's volume 3, and it's April the 2nd, 1900. And this is John's favorite reading, so he's going to read it for us.
Okay, and I'll preface this a little bit just by saying, since I'm relatively new in all of this, this kind of spoke to me as to my fear of not doing the right thing as I live through the day. So this one, kind of helped put me at ease a little bit. So April 2nd, 1900, Jesus judges according to the will with which one operates. This morning I had to suffer very much because of the absence of my dear Jesus. However, he repaid my pains by granting a desire of mine, of wanting to know something which I had been yearning for a long time. Then I went round and round in search of Jesus. Now I would call him with prayer, now with tears, now with singing. Who knows whether he might be wounded by my voice, and so let himself be found, but it was all in vain. I repeated my moans. I asked about him to whomever I found. Finally, my heart felt him, which I will write in this book of the confessor. I asked for his forgiveness, so it seems we placed ourselves in accord, so much so that he himself asked me what I wanted. And I said to him, "Be pleased to let me know your will about my state, especially what I must do when I find myself with little sufferings and you do not come. And if you do come, it is almost like a shadow. So not seeing you, I feel my senses present within me and find myself in this state. I feel as if I were adding something of my own, and as if it were not necessary to wait for the comings of the confessor in order to go out of this state. And Jesus, whether you suffer or not, whether I come or not, your state is always a victim, more so since this is my will and yours, and I judge not according to the works that one does, but according to the wishes with which one operates. And I, my Lord, it is fine as you say, but it seems to me that I am useless and that much time is wasted, and I feel a bother, a fear, and then having the confessor come torments my soul, for it may not be your will. And he, do you think it is a sin to have the confessor come? And I, no, but I fear it is not your will. And he, it is sin that you must shun, even the shadow of it. but the rest you must have no concern. And that's actually that's the area for me that kind of put everything, I guess, at ease, because I was always worried about, am I doing the right thing or not? And that spoke very clear to me.
But I like it. I like how he says, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I did not mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, that's fine.
But he asks her, "Do you think it is a sin to have the confessor come?" And he says, and what she's asking is like, "I don't know if this is your will or not." And what he jumped right to it. Would you, in other words, if you live in my will, what would be the sin? If you're not in my will, then you'd have to be concerned with it. Because he jumps right into.
Well, and he says there up at the top, he says, "I judge not according to the works that one does, but according to in my version, the will with which one operates,
Yeah.
in which one operates."
And she's operating in his will, so he's saying, "There's no sin in my will. What are you concerned with?"
Well, and it's also stated in another reading, because we're used to doing things, doing actions. And Jesus said, it's not about the actions, it's about the love that they're done with. And that's that's like the will, but if the love is not there, you're not going to be doing it. So, yeah.
And that's what she's saying. I'm just laid up in the bed and the confessor has to come. I feel like I'm worthless. I'm bothered with people. I don't feel like I'm doing anything. And that's like you had said, but.
Or I should be suffering.
Right.
Please make me suffer. Help me suffer.
Well, you will.
Yeah, he will. Yeah. But this is, I guess this is the one, like I said, that this kind of put my mind a little bit more at ease, because, like I said, being I guess here since February, or with this since February, so not a long time, we continue, or I continued, and I think at those early meetings, I was always asking, well, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? And so I was worried about me deciding what Jesus would do. And anyway, so this one spoke to me, and I think it would, to people that are newer, that are coming into this, I think, and it's great, obviously, that's an early volume, but sometimes when you're reading the stuff early on, it isn't quite clicking. And for me, it didn't click until I came back to it a second time. So I will continue here. Let's see. And if it were not your will, why remain there? And he, it seems that my daughter wants to escape the state of victim, doesn't she? And I, all blushing, said, No, Lord, I am saying this for those times in which you do not let me suffer and do not come. After all, let me suffer, and I will have no concerns.
Can I pause you there? Because that is so important. Because she's saying, he keeps saying you're a state of victim. Okay, and so and it's the volumes 1 through 10. He's teaching her to, how he's taking her through redemption, the church. And so listen to what she says. No, Lord, I am saying this for those times in which you do not let me suffer. Where is that so familiar? That's so familiar within our church. Suffering, sacrifice, this, and so forth. And Jesus is like, well, that doesn't mean you're not in my will. It's up to me if you're going to suffer or not. It's not up to you to want to suffer. And it's also our interpretation of victim soul. And I love volumes 1 through 10 because you really start to understand what Jesus wants for a victim soul. She is being a victim soul. Being a victim soul is you no longer do your will, right? So, like you had said before, and I this is easy to use as an example, but I don't want anybody to be offended by what I'm saying. There's such a prefix that. But if you were doing the Divine Mercy Chaplet every day at 3 o'clock, are you doing it for you or are you doing it for Jesus? And the victim soul is that you do everything for Jesus, not for you anymore. So if he asks you to give up that Divine Mercy Chaplet, that's a victim. Is that not being, that's a suffering for you because you're used to it and you've heard and you've listened and you've known because you've read all the benefits of doing the Divine Mercy Chaplet. And being a victim soul means to give up yourself completely and to trust God completely. That just because you didn't pray that chaplet, your intention was to pray the chaplet, and therefore all the goods from the chaplet are taken care of.
And the chaplet is a good thing. It is a holy thing. So no one is disputing that, but it's
when it's a very good example, because he says that in the writings about the holy things,
That's the holy thing.
because he wants us to think about that. Because when we're doing holy things, we think we're doing what God wants us to do, and so all of a sudden he doesn't want us to do that.
Right,
And why wouldn't he want us to do that?
right. And she's having a confessor come to her house, right? She's having a confessor come daily. And how many times, you've met people in your spiritual life who would love to have a spiritual, confessor, right? And she's just like, okay, is that your will that you want him to become in? And so that becomes, she's not in control of anything, but yet she's in control of everything, because her control is her intent to live in the divine will. And then you have to, I hope I'm explaining it
Yeah,
correctly.
you are, because what you're saying is you let the divine will operate.
Absolutely.
Not you.
Not you, right, the divine will.
Regardless, and I think that's what he's teaching through all of this.
Yes, you have disappeared.
Right.
You and all your issues and all your psychological needs and all your wants,
Baggage.
all your baggage, that's all disappeared.
Yeah,
And
You're dropping the ocean.
yes, you're dropping the ocean.
and you can take it further, right? Because you look at your vocation. If you're married, or if you're single, or if you're a priest, and even that, it's when you become a victim soul, it's listening to Jesus versus even you have to become more obedient. How do I say this correctly? Become more obedient, because she's teaching her obedience through the confessors and so forth. But to understand that the obedience comes from Jesus. Oh, and that's a hard one.
Mhm.
That's a hard one when you're a spouse and you've been used to, confronting to back down and say, okay, my spouse said no, the answer is no, yeah,
To stop fighting.
to stop fighting it, to know that everything comes from Jesus. Yeah.
Continuing on, I believe.
Yes.
And Jesus, to me it seems that you want to escape. Besides, do you know when I intend to come and communicate my pains to you, whether at the first, the second, the third, or even the last hour? So by distracting yourself from me and trying to go out, you occupy yourself with something else. And when I come, I will not find you prepared, and will turn around and go elsewhere. And I, all frightened, may this never be, O Lord. I want to know nothing but your most holy will. And he remained calm and wait for the confessor. Having said this, he disappeared. It seems I feel relieved of a heavy weight by this speaking of Jesus, but in spite of this, the sorrowful pain of when Jesus deprives me of himself has not decreased in me.
That's good reading.
Very good. Okay, is there any more discussion on that reading? If not, we will go on to the next reading, and this is the reading that Charlie sent in, and it's March the 8th, 1914. Not sure what volume that is yet, but I have it here. March the 8th, 1914. Volume 11.
Volume 11.
Yeah, volume 11. Katie, would you like to read that one?
March 8, 1914. As the soul lives and dies in the divine will, there is no good which she does not carry with herself. The value of one single instant in the divine will. All of the soul who lives in the divine will experiences does not belong to her, but to Jesus within her. One who lives in the divine will can by no means go to purgatory. Continuing in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus has not ceased to speak to me so very often about his most holy will. I will say the little I remember. As I was not feeling well, on coming, blessed Jesus told me, "My daughter, the soul who lives in my will can say of everything I do, 'It is mine.' This, because the will of the soul is so identified with mine, that whatever my will does, she does as well. So, as she lives and dies in my volition, there is no good which she does not carry with herself, because there is no good which my will does not contain. My will is the life of all the good that creatures do. Therefore, as the soul dies in my will, she carries with her the masses that are celebrated, and the prayers and the good works that are done, because they are all fruits of my will. And this is still very little compared to the operating of my will itself, which the soul carries with her as her own. One instant of the operating of my will is enough to surpass all the works of all creatures, past, present, and future. So, as the soul dies in my will, there is no beauty that matches her, nor heights, riches, sanctity, wisdom, or love. Nothing can equal her. As the soul who dies in my will enters into the heavenly fatherland, not only will the heaven's gates open, but the entire heaven will bow to welcome her into the celestial dwelling, to honor the working of my will. What should I tell you then of the feast and the surprise of all the blessed in seeing this soul completely marked by the working of the divine will? In seeing in this soul who has done everything in my will, that everything she has done during her life, each saying, each thought, word, work, action of hers, are many sons that adorn her, each one different from the other in light and in beauty. And in seeing the soul, many divine rivulets that will inundate all the blessed and flow also upon earth for the good of pilgrim souls, since heaven cannot contain them. Ah, my daughter, my will is the portent of portents. It is the secret to finding light, sanctity, and riches. It is the secret to all goods, but it is not known, and therefore not appreciated nor loved. You at least appreciate it, love it, and make it known to those whom you see disposed. Another day, as I was suffering, I felt like I was unable to do anything, so I felt oppressed. And Jesus, clasping the whole of me, told me, "My daughter, do not worry yourself. Try only to be abandoned in my will, and I will do everything for you. Because one single instant in my will is more than all the good you could possibly do in your entire life." I also remember that another day he told me, "My daughter, one who truly does my will, in everything that occurs within her, both in the soul and in the body, in whatever she feels and suffers, can say, 'Jesus is suffering, Jesus is oppressed.' In fact, everything that creatures do to me reaches me even in the soul in whom I dwell, who does my will. So if the coldness of creatures reaches me, my will feels it, and since my will is the life of that soul, it happens as a consequence that the soul feels it too. So instead of troubling herself over this coldness, as if it were her own, she must remain around me to console me, and repair for the coldness that creatures send to me. In the same way, as she feels distractions, oppression, and other things, she must remain around me to relieve me and repair, as if those were not her things, but mine. Therefore, the soul who lives of my will feel many different pains, according to the offenses that creatures give me, but in a sudden way, and almost in one start. On the other hand, she will also feel indescribable joys and contentments. And if in the first she must occupy herself with consoling me and repairing, in the joys and contentments she must delight. Only then does my soul find my own interest. Otherwise it would remain saddened and unable to carry out what my volition contains. Another day he told me, "My daughter, one who does my will can by no means go to purgatory, because my will purges the soul of everything. After keeping her so jealously during her life, in the custody of my volition, how could I allow the fire of purgatory to touch her? At the most she may lack some clothing, but my will, before revealing the divinity to her, will clothe her with all that she may lack, and then I reveal myself." There's a lot in that
So
one.
there's a lot in that one, and I didn't know where
Stop.
to pause, to stop, but I loved in the beginning because he says just one act,
That's it.
one act.
Yeah.
And so remember from old videos that Father Brown would say is that one act could be your moment at death, just to say yes.
Mhm.
one single instant in my will is what is more than all the good you could do in your entire life.
Actually,
It goes
more
back to
than
that
that,
doing things, you know?
more than that, we said, where is it? It's one instant of the operating of my will is enough to surpass all the works of all creatures, past, present, and future. Not
All
just what
creatures,
I
not
could
just
do,
you.
Right.
not just
All
me
creatures.
and what I can do in my finite lifetime,
That's a
but
huge.
all
yeah,
creatures, past, present, and future.
Therefore, dying to this life, the soul in my will carries within the masses which are celebrated, the prayers and the good works which are done, since all of them are the fruits of my will. This is still very little compared to the work of my will itself, which the soul carries with her as her own. One instant of the work of my will is enough to surpass all the work of all creatures, past, present, and future. But this goes with what John's reading that he had earlier, was that all it is just saying, yes, my intention is to live. I mean, there isn't any other intention. It's just all purity of intention. So this is Jesus talking to her, but we know what it feels like when you feel the overwhelming love of God flowing through you, and you know that you're supposed to at that moment you say, "I love you too," and we know the graces. We've experienced them, even though you just start learning about this in February. You know the graces. You can start recognizing them because you understand the graces. You understand what they are, and you hear Jesus speaking to Louisa, and then a lot of times you hear Louisa speaking to Jesus, but it's always her saying her privations, which I can understand, and her feeling that she's so bad, which we understand those two. But I would love for her in the later volumes here talking about that she's just in the volition, that she's just in the graces, that she is, understanding this. She understands it fully, or as fully as she can understand it. And I love this because you can respond back. You can say how you feel. You can have that communication with Jesus. And this is what he's saying. He's saying, you feel these things. You know that you feel my will in you. And then the second part of it was, if you're feeling cold or you're feeling sad because of something that somebody did to you, that is one person doing it to you. And he's allowing you to feel that because he feels it 100 zillion times more than you do, and he's just letting you have that suffering. And our word becomes fiat. And it is new. It's a new learning, to just say fiat and not analyze, not to dissect, not to.
But also to recognize it for what it truly is. Like this, you are nothing, and he is living in you, and these are his pains and his joys. And to me, this the first part of the reading, he's talking about it, he's enticing you, and then he's explaining that this is a whole transformation. It's just so much more beautiful than we could imagine.
Well, before the divine will, you were filled with yourself. You just were.
It's all you knew.
We all. But as the biggest thing in the divine will, whether it's February or whether it's February this year or February 20 years ago, is that we said yes. We said fiat. We said we don't know what this is all about, but we like the sound of it, and yes, that's the biggest thing. And then slowly and surely, Jesus gets rid of us and fills us with him, and it becomes easier. It becomes easier. The more knowledges you have, and we'll talk about that in the next reading, but the more knowledges you have, the more you know, okay, this is all I need to do. And no, I don't need to be doing that anymore. He gives you, he sets us on a path. We're on a path, and as long as we're staying on that path with him, in him, it is what it is. But if we go off to do our own will, that's when the trouble starts, and we don't. Well, whatever. But anyway, that's when the trouble starts. Okay, so he talks about purgatory here. You want to address that, Mary?
Well, purgatory, you're being purged of yourself.
Yes.
So he's saying that if you live in the divine will, I purged you. Don't. And I know as a beginner, when you start coming in, you're like, oh my gosh, I snapped. I didn't say fiat first. But I would tell people like, but you became attentive to how you
Yeah,
responded.
You knew you should have said
And
it.
that's when you're just like, I'm becoming more attentive to how I reacted. So Jesus is purging you so that he purges you by letting you be attentive to how you used to act. So therefore you know. In the past, like you said, when you were identified with just yourself because that's all you knew, the way you reacted is the way you reacted. They would have to deal with it. But now he allows you to become, that's being the attentive part. And it's not that you fell out, because how did you fall out? Did your purity of intention didn't go away? You just reacted in a way that Jesus lets you be, We've talked about this before, the little white lies, right? And everybody's okay with the little white lies, right? Because you were lying to protect somebody. But the further you get along in this, the more he identifies, like, he doesn't even know. You don't have to worry about how they feel about it. The truth always has to be the truth. And, many times just like simple things, just simple things and you catch yourself and you're like,
You do catch yourself.
you do catch yourself.
You feel so bad about it.
Yeah,
And
you do.
immediately, because when you give it to him and it's gone.
Yeah, you give it to him and it's gone, but that's just it, that attentiveness, just
Yeah.
in the little things. So, what would you need to be purged from? Because he's purging you completely of yourself here.
Exactly, he's purging you of yourself here, and that's that, I would call it the crafting of your soul, but it's true. Jesus just doesn't snap his fingers because we said yes, and then we're all perfect beings. And it takes some crafting, and it takes, the slap on the wrist, no, I don't want you to do that. And it's think about the rain that we've had here, and I've heard a lot of grumbling, and but it really should be fiat. Fiat, whether the sun is shining, whether it's raining, whether it's cloudy, whether it's snowing, it should be fiat because that's where we say we are. And so that's just one example of the weather.
That's a good reading.
All right, so we'll go ahead on to the, what about Mel and Maness? Any discussion there, Mel?
You guys have anything now on Ness?
Are they there?
Are you still there?
Okay.
Did you have any comments or anything on that reading?
No, I think you guys have handled it pretty good.
Okay, all right, very good.
Moving
All right,
on.
well, we go on to the next one now. So two of us had picked the next reading, Haynes and myself, and so it's volume 20, October 19, 1926. Okay, so volume 20, October 19, 1926. So while that's pulling up here, oh, I didn't write it down. Okay. Anyway.
This has got to be a good one if the two of you picked
Yeah.
it independently.
No mistakes in God's world.
That's
you know
right.
that, so, I think we have another one that two people have picked, right? Steve? All right, so this is an interesting reading because it has no title. So if everyone is there, October 19th. Huh?
It
Mine has
does.
a title.
Well,
You
you
have
have a
that weird
different-
version.
I do have a different
Yeah.
version, but if you'd like to read it.
You have a different
What's your
title.
title?
Yeah, let me read you.
What's
Yeah.
your title?
In my version. The divine fiat possesses the source of novelty, and the soul who lets herself be dominated by it is under the influence of a new continued act, never interrupted, and receives the effects and the life of everything that the divine will has done.
Very good. Is yours the same, John?
I have no title.
You have no
Yeah,
title.
I have
Okay.
the same version you
Okay,
guys have.
yeah. All right, so it's good to have variety because that's what he's saying. So, but anyway, this reading in our version has no title. So, but the part that spoke to me about it, one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because Jesus says, "You know what it means to possess these knowledges about my will," and He's going to tell us. And we're not doing His will; we possess His will, and we possess these knowledges because we want to learn them. So anyway, as I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus made himself seen in my interior with a sun which came down from heaven and was centered in his breast. And as I prayed, breathed, moved, and did my acts in his will, it acquired light, and Jesus expanded more within my soul, occupying more space. I remained surprised in seeing that everything I did acquired light from the breast of Jesus, and that Jesus became larger and extended more within me, and I was filled more with him. After this he said to me, My daughter, my divinity is a new continuous act, and since my will is the regime of it, the carrying out of our works, the bearer of this new act, it possesses the fullness of this new act, and therefore it is ever new in its works, new in its happiness, new in the joy, and ever new in the manifestations of its knowledges. This is why it tells you always new things about my fiat, because it possesses the source of novelties. And if many things seem to be alike and to hold hands, this is the effect of the unending light it contains. Being inseparable, they seem to be lights which are linked together. The light contains the substance of colors, which are like many new and distinct acts that the light possesses. One cannot say that there is only one color, but rather all colors, with the varieties of all shades, pale, strong, and dark. However, that which embellishes these colors and renders them more brilliant is the fact that they are invested by the power of light. So he's talking there about color, and he gives the good examples of the shades, all the varieties. You have pale, strong, dark, and so I'm been an interior designer, but we studied color for a whole year, and there's a color wheel, and there's all these colors, and then there's the different shades of color that come off the wheel, and so there are a lot of colors, and whole designs can be taken just from one color, and there's all sorts of names for that. But that's not what makes the colors great. What makes the colors and renders them more brilliant is the fact that they're invested by the power of his light. And back over here, he was talking about the novelties. You think things are the same. So even with the rain that we've had here in Texas, I like to go and get flowers from the garden, and so so I picked 5 of the same flowers. They're the same type of flower, but I had been reading this reading, and I put them in the little vase, and they were all different. They were all different, and this is what he was saying. The novelty of that flower is that you think it's the same. They're 2 daisies, and they should be the same. They're not. They're not the same at all. And I thought, Jesus, you were so funny the way you show things, you know. But anyway, but because of reading this reading, that's what it brought to that's the kind of things it makes me think about. So anyway, they would be colors without attractiveness and without beauty. Did I read that already? In the same way, the many knowledges given to you about my will, because they come from its unending light, are invested with light. And therefore it seems that they hold hands, but that they look alike. However, in their substance, they are more than colors, even new in the truths, new in their way, new in the good they bring, new in the sanctification they communicate, new in the similes, new in the beauties, and maybe even just one new and additional word contained in the different manifestations about my will is always a divine color. And it is a new eternal act that the creature takes, an act which never ends, in the grace, in the goods, in the glory.
So he's talking about, I love that, because, and maybe even just one new and additional word contained in the different manifestations about my will. So as you said, Katie has a different version than us, all approved.
Yeah.
But she has different words than ours.
Right.
And so it's an additional word. So it's an additional word of Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, and it's they hold hands because they're the same will, same truths, but different. And you know, he just showed us.
He just showed us a great example of that.
Yes. So not only the flowers, but the different readings.
Yeah.
But it also tells you that you are never done reading these writings. You got to keep reading and keep reading and keep reading and keep reading, to where, because every time you read something, like we've read the 1900 before, but it was new today. It was new, and you receive new things. You're never done.
Right.
Now we're going to talk next about what it means to why
Yes.
what the knowledge is you need
Yeah.
to have.
But the divine will is new,
Yeah.
you know, and when people say, well, that's not the way I'm used to doing it, no, it's
No,
not.
it shouldn't be.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it's new.
It's a new act.
It's a new way, it's a new act, it's a new everything.
And it's also what he says that one holds hands to the other. So what I experience is that reading now the readings, the writings, they're all Jesus' word. And now when you go back to even the Old Testament or the New Testament, there's new light on those
Yes.
on the Gospels, and
Yes.
and it's, you know, how you used to hear it when you before knowing about the gift is different now that you know about the gift, right? And that's what I think is important about it, is that you have someone that you can reach out to discuss these things, to talk about, because if not, you're just holding it inside, and it's, you know, it is it's like a new, you know, gift that you want to share with someone else, like,
Yeah.
hey, read Matthew now, this verse, this, so forth, in light of the divine will. And that's what I'm saying, that they hold hands to each other. You're going to have new light is being shed on all of it. So
That's right. So, do you know what it means to possess these knowledges about my will? It is as if one possessed a coin which had the virtue of making arise as many coins as he wants, and by possessing a springing good, poverty is over. In the same way, these knowledges of mine possess light, sanctity, strength, beauty, and riches, which spring up continuously. So those who would possess them will have the source of light, of sanctity. Therefore, darkness, weakness, the ugliness of sin, poverty of divine goods will end for them. All evils will end, and they will possess the source of sanctity. So no more sin, no more evil, there's no more poverty, because you have the source. You didn't just get one installment, you have the source.
like the source, you possess the source.
So see this light which you see as centered in my breast is my supreme will. As you emit your acts, light arises and communicates itself to you, bringing you new knowledges about my fiat, which by emptying you, enlarge the place in which I can extend more within you. And as I keep extending your natural life, your will, all of yourself comes to an end, because you give place to mine. And I occupy myself with forming and extending more and more the kingdom of the supreme fiat in you. So you will have a larger field in order to go around in it, and to help me in the work of the new formation of my kingdom in the midst of creatures. So Jesus is saying there that, you know, because again, like we talked about, but, you know, you've emptied yourself of you, he can expand. The field is bigger. The work area is bigger. You can do more, and Jesus can do more so you will have a larger field to go around in and help me in the work and the new formation of my kingdom in the midst of creatures. So the kingdom is going to be bigger, and it's for more creatures, not just for you, right?
Well, sanctification is not just for us; it's for
No,
everybody.
that's right.
But I love the fact that he says, "You help me." But in the beginning, in previous, you contain the fount.
Yes.
So you just think of this big fountain just overwhelming.
Yes.
So, and as we've done in previous weeks, every act creates a divine life.
Mm-hmm.
So divine lives are going into these souls. So that's the sanctification of these souls, past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm.
So not just, and when he says so you will have a larger field in order to go around in it. So it's not that you're just going to the grocery store today, those people around there.
Right.
What he's saying, you're going around in it, is past, present, and future, because God is eternal. So just think of the big ring. And so the sanctification, because none of the sanctification, the supreme being, the heaven of the supreme being, was open when he started giving the knowledges to Louisa. Now he's the kingdom that came down during redemption, right? And then he was resurrected. And we know that from the other writings. But until Louisa, nobody was able to possess or live it. live in it of common stock, because you know the Blessed Mother lived in it. But she is the first one of common stock. So now us living in the divine will are helping both Jesus, Mary, and Louisa to go around in it, because you're doing past, present, and future, sanctifying. It's the sanctification. Remember the one that we read before, every mass is in your soul, every rosary, and so forth. And you know what you've done, you fecundated it because of the light possessed by, am I talking too fast? Just slow me down, as I know that people say that. So he comes with the light in his soul. He is now saying to Louisa, you possess this light because you possess the knowledge, because you said yes, because you said fiat. And so like a font, it's going out. You are helping me sanctify. And he says around, because you're doing past, present, and future. And that we fecundate with this light. That's why it's great. It's the sun. The sun fecundates. The sun makes the flowers, the colors brighter, be it that they're dark or be that they're heavier, being that they're pale. You're the one that shines the light on it to make the colors come out. So does that
Yeah.
was that okay?
That's good.
All right.
Then I continued my acts in the unending heaven of the divine will, and I could touch with my own hand how in everything that came out of the eternal fiat, both in creation and in redemption and in sanctification, there are many beings and innumerable things, all new and distinct among themselves. At most they look alike, they hold hands, but not one being or thing can say, I am the same as the other. Even the most tiny insect, the most little flower, carries the mark of novelty. So I thought to myself, is it really true that the fiat of the divine majesty contains the virtue, the source of a new continuous act? What happiness it is to let oneself be dominated by this omnipotent fiat, to be under the influence of a new act, never interrupted. Now while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus came back, and looking at me with unspeakable love, called everything around himself. At his wish, all creation and the goods of redemption found themselves around Jesus, and he bound my poor soul to all creation and redemption, to let me receive all the effects of everything that his adorable will has done. And he added, my daughter, one who lets herself be dominated by my will is under the influence of all its acts, and receives the effects in the life of what I did in creation and redemption. Everything is in relationship with her and bound to her. Okay, that's a little deeper there. You want to address that one, Mary?
I do, but it's like you said, it's deep. It is, I mean, okay, what does he say? To let me receive all the effects of everything that his adorable will has done. I mean, just masticate on that. You can't really, I can't summarize it as much as tell you just reflect on that, on what are the goods of redemption and creation and sanctification. And that's what he's allowing us to feel the effects of.
Receive the effects.
Receive the effects.
But he just has this wish, and they're all around him. Like Jesus does this, and he can see everything through. Of course, he can. But,
and he says that every soul is different. So the effects of redemption, all souls were redeemed. So she's seeing all these different souls around Jesus redeemed. Of course, it's going to make you happy because you want them to be redeemed and saved. And then, you think about creation, and there's other writings where she says, I don't know what all the bugs are. And Jesus says, it doesn't matter. I love you. Every part of my creation is responding back to you. I love you. So the trees are saying, I love you. The plants are saying, I love you. The animals are all saying, I love you, because it's one. So, as I said, you can just think about the goods of creation and redemption, and feel the effects of it. He'll let you. That's the bilocating, to go into your soul and just to masticate on that. He'll let you feel it and bring new light to things that you never thought of before.
Okay, I screwed up here. We went to writing 26 instead of 24. So now we're going to go back to, it's going to be volume 17, September the 18th, 1924. This is Mel's reading. Okay, Mel? Okay, so again, it's volume 17, September 18, 1924.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, we'll have Mary read this one.
I love this.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, I just want to make sure it's coming across okay.
Yeah.
All right, 1 second, let me get back over to it. I'm having to go back and forth between the book and
Yeah.
et cetera. Okay. This is September 18th, 1924, the distance between living in the divine will and doing the will of God. I was thinking over what has been written on living in the divine volition, and I prayed to Jesus that he would give me more light to be able to clarify more of this blessed living in the divine will to those to whom I am obliged to do so. And my sweet Jesus told me, my daughter, unfortunately, they are slow in understanding it. To live in my will is to reign in it and with it, while to do my will is to be submitted to my orders. The first state is to possess. The second is to receive distributions and execute commands. To live in my will is to make my will one's own, as one's own property, and to dispose of it. To do my will is to take it into account as the will of God, not as one's own thing, nor can one dispose of it as he wants. To live in my will is to live with one single will, that of God. And since it is a will all holy, all pure, all peaceful, being one single will that reigns, there are no contrasts. Everything is peace. Human passions tremble before this supreme will and would rather escape it, nor do they dare to even move or oppose it, in seeing that heaven and earth tremble before his holy will. Therefore, the first step of living in the divine will, which allows a creature to receive the divine order, is the depth of the soul, where grace moves her to empty herself of what is human, tendons, passions, inclinations, and other things. And of course, we learn through a lot of the readings of how we're able to take this on and to not only work our way where we're emptying ourselves of our own will, but what he is doing with that and with that intention that we have. On the other hand, to do my will is to live with two wills in such a way that when I give orders to follow mine, the creatures feel the weight of their own will, which causes contrasts. And even though they follow the orders of my will with faithfulness, they feel the weight of their rebellious nature, of their passions and inclinations. How many saints, although they may have reached the highest perfection, feel their own will waging war against them, keeping them oppressed, and many are forced to cry out, "Who will free me from this body of death?" That is, from this will of mine that wants to give death to the good I want to do. To live in my will is to live as a son. To just do my will would be called, in comparison, living as a servant. In the first case, what belongs to the Father belongs to the Son. And then it is well known how servants are forced to make more sacrifices than sons do. They have to expose themselves to more tiring and more humble services, to cold, to heat, to traveling on foot, and the like. In fact, how much did my saints not do, though most beloved friends of mine, in order to execute the orders of my will? Instead, a son remains with his father, takes care of him, cheers him up with kisses and caresses, He gives orders to the servants as if his Father were ordering them. And if he goes out, he doesn't walk, but travels in a coach. And while the Son possesses all that belongs to his Father, the servants are given only recompense for the work they have done, remaining free to serve their master or not. And if they do not serve, they no longer have a right to receive any further compensation. On the other hand, nobody can remove those intimate relations between Father and Son, by which the Son possesses the goods of the Father, and no law, either celestial or terrestrial, can cancel these rights, just as it cannot unbind sonship between Father and Son.
Can I pause you there?
Yes.
So what came to my mind as you were reading is our beautiful Saint Francis, and Jesus on the crucifix looking at him and saying, "Rebuild my church." And all he had to do all he went through to rebuild the church. But with what Jesus had just said, you know you are the new church. There's nothing to rebuild. You are it. See the difference? St. Francis, who we love, was given a command and he fulfilled it. And us who are living in the light, there's nothing to do. You are the new church. Nothing to rebuild, so forth. Just go. Is that a good? That's all.
Okay. My daughter, the living in my will is the living that is closest to the blessed of heaven. It is so distant from one who is simply conformed to my will and does it, faithfully executing its orders. As much as heaven is distant from the earth, as much as the distance between a son and a servant, and between a king and a subject. Moreover, this is a gift which I want to give in these times, so sad, that they may not only do my will, but possess it. Am I perhaps not free to give whatever I want, when I want, and to whom I want? Isn't a master free to say to his servant, "Live in my house, eat, take, command as another myself"? And so that nobody may prevent him from possessing his goods, he legitimizes his servant as his own son and gives him the right to possess. If a rich man can do so, much more can I do it. This living in my will is the greatest gift I want to give to the creatures. My goodness wants to show off more and more love towards creatures. And since I gave them everything, I want to give them the gift of my will, so that in possessing it, they may appreciate and love the great good they possess. And don't be surprised if you see that they do not understand. In order to understand, they would have to dispose themselves to the greatest of sacrifices, that of not giving life, even in holy things, to their own will. Then they will feel the possession of mine, and would touch with their own hands what it means to live in my will. You, however, be attentive, and do not be bothered by the difficulties they raise. Little by little I will make my way to make them understand the living in my will.
That's such a great reading.
That is a good reading.
It's Katie's favorite too. Two of you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always been for me a definitional and a distinctional line about doing and living. And John mentioned it when he was reading his reading and some of the issues that he was having that we all have had when we're saying to ourselves, what would Jesus do, or is this what Jesus wants me to do, or Jesus wants me to do this? But in all of those statements and comments that we make to ourselves, it is our will that's making the distinction as to whether or not we're doing Jesus' will. And I think, Mary, you mentioned just a short while ago the operating and the living in the divine will you're not making those distinctions. You're understanding and you're knowing that because God has created all, that you are allowing him to experience through you and me and everyone else what his creation is doing and has done. And there's no deciding whether that's a good thing or a bad thing or it's the will of God. We know that he loves us. We know that everything he's done is out of love and love for us, so that the distinction of am I doing is not there anymore. And that, he describes that, I think, pretty well within the father, or the father and the son, and the servant relationship. So
Yeah,
he obviously there's a lot of readings about this, so he continues to make that distinction. But I thought this one was pretty good.
right. I always think about the father and son when he talks about that, but if this is what I think about, if you're the son, you can go straight into the father's house, go into the refrigerator, take out whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if you're not a son, you don't do that in people's homes. You don't go into their house and take out something out of the refrigerator. If you're a friend or if you're a neighbor, you don't do that. But if you're the son or the daughter, you go straight in the refrigerator, because what the father owns is yours and what you own is his, and there is no distinction. And I love that, and that's because, that just sent home to me that I'm the daughter. I'm not the servant, and that changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that because it's not just the refrigerator, but you just, like he said, that everything is yours to dispose on how you want to dispose it. So if you see someone in need that needs a grace, you dispose the grace.
Yeah.
You dispose the gifts.
Yeah.
It's no longer asking for somebody.
Right.
So when someone says, pray for me, I'm sick,
Yeah.
we say thy will be done, but actually dispose them. What do they need?
Yes.
Fill the graces to get through this. Feel the fruits of the Holy Spirit. May you be sanctified from the suffering that you're going with. Offer the suffering to Jesus. That's what he wants us to do, right? Those are habits you have to, I'm going to call them habits, that you have to break, right? How many times a day do you get asked, pray for this, pray for that, pray for that? And that's what he's saying. It's like, you no longer have to ask. Like you said, you're the son or the daughter. Get in the refrigerator, go take what you need and give it to the person, right? You don't.
Right, and I
There's also to take Anne-Marie's comment just a little bit further about your friend's house. You don't go in and to their refrigerator take their milk unless they give you the permission and they allow you to, which is similar to what Jesus is talking about when in this last reading, where he says, and he says, if the landowner or if the king allows the servant to come in and he gives them permission, then the servant can then because he has the permission act in the same way. And he ends up saying, if the king can do this, or if the landowner can do this, then I can certainly do it and even go beyond that as well. And to me, a lot of this too is it gives us the comfort of learning these knowledges and wanting more. He gives us more and therefore we want more, and we have that circle of knowledge which expands our will, that expands our own soul, which we've talked about in a couple of the readings earlier. If he wants to do that, he can certainly do it. And that's the process. That's the process of gaining these knowledges and giving up our will that, to me at least, kind of translates to the neighbor giving me permission now to go into his becoming a son and being able to go into his refrigerator in that example.
Yes, because he says I can give whatever I want, when I want, and to whom I want.
Right.
He's the king. He can do whatever, and that's
something too. To digress just a moment, that's something that Louisa has certainly in the early volumes it takes her a while to gather that, because how many times have we heard her say, I am so little, I am so bad, why me, how did you pick me, why is all this? And he tells her, I can do what I want to do, and we have to accept that as part of our learning and our understanding of these readings too. Is that these are from Jesus, and if he wants to do it, he can do it. I mean, that's just the way that it is. Right? So it's
like Jesus saying, I think to go back to sort of the beginning of understanding these knowledges, you start to think, wow, this is such a great gift. Why would I be worthy? And you say, who am I? And Jesus says, who are you to tell me I can't?
Yeah. Jesus has a way of doing that.
Yeah, doesn't he?
Turn it around.
Well, and to me, this is about the relationship of the Father and the Son. And you would never say, why me?
Yeah.
To your own parents.
Yeah.
Who've given you whatever.
Yeah.
It's that to me is so beautiful.
Oh, I like
Well,
that.
and
You would
something
never
else I
take.
thought too is, when you're possessing the divine will, that is your usual dwelling. That is your home. That
Right.
so to have all of that at your disposal, to carry that metaphor of that house,
And to learn from the Father how to do that. The child follows the parent around and learns how to be that person, right? And so you talk about distributing graces and all. Well, this is a relationship, and I learned to do that because that's what my Father does.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that. It's what my father does.
That's
So
right. That's
I-
what we do. Right?
Yeah, I like
It's
that.
us.
Very good.
That's
Ah.
very good.
Mel, do you want to go on to the next reading? The one, that's,
the September 22nd.
yeah. So.
Yeah, that's the next reading
Yeah.
right after this one, and it's a continuation on it.
Okay, well, we'll do that. It's not too long, so go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
No, so September 22nd, 1924. I'll wait just a moment for everybody to get there. Should be pretty close, but
We're there.
so diabolical rage because Louisa writes on the divine will. Living in the divine will makes one lose all rights over the human will. I continue. While I was writing what is written above, I saw my sweet Jesus placing his mouth at the point of my heart and feeding me the words I was writing. Think about that for a moment.
Oh my gosh.
just
Oh my gosh.
that in and of itself. At the same time, I heard a horrible din from afar, as if people were beating each other and roaring with such clamor as to strike fear. And I, turning to my Jesus, said to him, "My Jesus, my love, who is making all this din? They sound like furious demons. What is the matter that they rage so much?" And Jesus, "My daughter, it really is them. They would want you not to write about my will. And when they see you write more important truths on living in my will, they suffer a double hell and they torment the damned even more. They fear so much that these writings on my will be manifested because they see that they lose their kingdom upon earth, which they acquired when man, withdrawing from the divine will, gave free step to his own human will. Ah, yes, it was exactly then that the enemy acquired his kingdom on earth. And if my will reigns upon earth, my enemy by himself will shut himself up in the deepest abyss, into the deepest abysses. This is why they wrestle with so much fury. They feel the power of my will in these writings, and at the mere thought that they may be manifested, they fly into a rage and try anything they can in order to hamper a good so great. You, however, do not pay attention to them and learn from this to appreciate my teachings.
Okay, so
And
can we pause
Stop.
there for a second? Okay, so you could just look so what do we know? We know that the children of the divine will, the children of light, that each knowledge brings in another child into the divine will, because he says that every knowledge that you gain brings another soul into living in the divine will. Each soul that lives in the divine will that said yes, they create divine lives which go into souls of other
human beings, past, present, and future. And so the demons were upset with her just writing. So now you see, I hate to say it, you see how bad it is out there in the world right now. Not that there's good or bad, but you see the big conflict that's going on because we're shutting down. If creating divine lives that go into people's souls reduces the possibility of people doing their own will, then Satan has no power. Remember, Satan and the demons, all they can do is tempt. And if there's no one to tempt, because you're creating divine lives in people's souls, they lose their power on earth. So you can see, what's happening in our world as of today and understand it more. And that's why we always say there is no good or bad. All is good, because if they're clamoring this loud, that means that it's working. Of course it's going to work. It's God.
And
But
to the good of everyone.
and to the good of everyone. Absolutely.
Including them. I mean,
They're going to start being disposed more, so they're going to start recognizing their will and not want to do what they.
and realize it's a dead end.
It's a dead end. Yeah. Oh, that's powerful.
Everyone. Even the enemies. That's why Jesus is loving his enemies on the cross.
Yeah.
It's this.
Yeah.
Okay, Mel.
Okay, Mel.
Okay. And I, my Jesus, I feel I need your omnipotent hand in order to write what you say about your will. In the face of the so many difficulties they raise, especially when they keep saying to me, how is it possible that no other creature ever lived in his most holy will? I then feel so annihilated that I would rather to disappear from the face of the earth, so that no one may see me ever again. But against my will, I am forced to stay in order to fulfill your holy will. And Jesus, my daughter, living in my will brings with itself the loss of any right of one's own will. All the rights belong to the divine will. And if the soul does not lose all of her rights, it cannot be called true living in my will. At the most, she lives resigned, conformed. In fact, living in my will is not only that she does her action according to my will, but that all in the interior of the creature she gives no place to one affection, one thought, or one desire, or even one breath, in which my will does not have its place. Nor would my will tolerate even one human affection, of which it is not the life. It would feel disgusted in letting the soul live in my will with her own affections, thoughts, and other things which a human will could have without the divine. And do you think it is easy that a soul would willingly lose her rights? Oh, how difficult it is. There are souls who, when they reach the point of losing all the rights over their own will, draw back and content themselves with conducting a life in the middle, because to lose her rights is the greatest sacrifice that a creature could do. But it is the one who disposes my goodness to open the doors of my will, giving her my divine rights in exchange by letting her live in it. Therefore, be attentive and never go out of the boundaries of my will.
I don't even know how to approach. There are souls who, when they reach the point of losing all the rights over their own will, draw back and content themselves with conducting a life in the middle. So they've never, so they know about it, but then they say no.
They hold back.
They hold back.
It gets tough, I
They reach
guess.
the point of losing all rights. Isn't it right there at the decisive moment?
Yeah.
That, so they must not have ever said, they must never, if you go back into the reading that you did where he's saying purity of attention, one act done in it, once you said you live in it, you're in it, you can't leave because you're in it. So these are souls who get right up to saying yes and like, no, can't do it. And they walk
Stay
away.
in the middle, that indifferent,
Yeah.
Lukewarm.
lukewarmness. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Ooh.
One of those.
But it is the one which disposes my goodness to open the doors of my will. Disposes my goodness. Dispose it. You show it off. You display it. I like that. That's a good reading.
But he gives her his divine rights in exchange for her yes, for her being
Yeah.
disposed, for her saying yes. In exchange, Jesus gives her his divine rights, where the other one came so close, but they said no, so they weren't able, they couldn't take it.
So there'll be souls who will know about living in the divine will, but they,
Well, it says, and at most she lives resigned and conformed.
yeah, resign and conform to do the divine will, not live in the divine will.
But that's part of the giving over of the rights.
Oh.
Maybe being more like a servant and not a
Yeah.
son
Exactly.
or daughter.
Exactly.
Very good reading now.
Yeah, very good readings.
Okay. Do you guys want to say anything about that? Anything else? Still on?
Mel, Liness, they might have muted us.
Okay.
Yeah, we're back on. Sorry, we're back
Okay.
on.
Did you want to say anything about that reading before we go on?
Want to say anything else? There's another one. I'll just show you that that I just read several days ago. It's January 28th, 1926.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't matter. We've gone off that.
What year?
1926. January 28th, 1926.
Did we do this last Saturday?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I like this one.
I feel like we might have done this one of the Monday nights, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
I do recall doing this recently.
Did we just do it last?
We did, but we didn't record it, so I mean, it's
Yeah, it's worth reading and talking about again for sure.
Yeah.
it's one I've talked about all week. So
It's volume 18, January 28th, 1926. Okay. See how long it is. It's quite long. Very long.
That's
Yeah.
when you were in High Point.
Okay. Yeah, it is a long one.
Okay. Well, I tell you what,
Try another one if
did
you
you
want.
do your?
yeah,
Mary has one. There's one left on for today's. We'll do Mary's first, and then maybe come back to this one if time allows. So Mary's is it's May 6, 1938, and it is
May 2, 1938.
May 6.
May 6.
1938.
So that's obviously a much later volume, probably volume 36, is it?
No, it's good to have perspective of the later volumes.
Yeah. So this is volume 36, May 6, 1938. And Mary's going to read this one.
I am. I love this one. This one, May 6, 1938. Desiring it and taking the first steps are all that is needed to live in the divine will. How the divine will possesses the generative life and generates endlessly when it reigns. Inseparability of the works of our Lord from one who lives in his will. My poor mind is crowded with thoughts regarding the divine will. These thoughts seem like many messengers that bring lots of news about this will so holy. I was surprised, and my sweet Jesus, coming back to his little daughter, all goodness said, "My good daughter,
It is very easy to enter my will, since your Jesus never teaches difficult things. My love makes me adapt to human capabilities. My love makes me adapt to human capabilities so that the creature can do with no difficulty what I teach and what I want. You must know that the first indispensable thing in order to enter my fiat is wanting and firmly yearning to live in it. The second thing is to take the first step, since once the first step is done, my divine will surrounds the creature with so much light and attraction that she loses any desire to do her own will. Okay, so let's go back to the reading that we just said, and we said that they get right up to the cusp of it, and they're like, nope, can't do it. But also get to where he says, because I think this is important, we're disposed, and that soul might not have been disposed. So we can't, the disposition is what allows us to desire it. If you're not disposed, there's nothing to desire. So just want to put that in there. All right. In fact, as soon as she takes a step, she feels powerful. The night of passions, weaknesses, miseries is turned into day, into divine strength. So she feels the irresistible need to take the second step, which calls for the third one, the fourth, the fifth, and so on and on. These are the steps of the light which embellishes the creature, sanctifies her, and makes her happy, which puts her on the right way, making her similar to her Creator, to the extent that not only does she feel the extreme need to live in my will, but she also feels it as inseparable from her as her own life. See then how easy it is? But wanting is necessary. My paternal goodness wants it too, always present in my will with grace, love, and goodness. Since I also want it, I add my contribution, my own life if necessary, to give her all the help and the means, even my own life as her own, in order to make her live in my will. I don't hold anything back when it comes to making a creature live in my will. Okay, I'm going to just focus on when it comes to making a creature live in my will. Okay, because he's going to explain what that means, right? Because you still have your free will, obviously, to say yes or no. But he's saying you don't have a choice. You have to live in my will. And he gets to it. My daughter, our love is so great that we fix different degrees of beauty and sanctity to adorn the soul in our divine will. We will make these souls different from one another, distinct in their beauty, sanctity, and love, but all beautiful, all unique. Some will remain in the sea of our light and will enjoy the goods of my will. Others will remain under the action of my operating light. These will be the most beautiful ones, with all our creative art and operating action. As we find the creature in our will, we can do whatever we want. She will be ready to receive our creative power, and we will delight in creating new beauties, unseen sanctities, love that we've never given to others, and which they could not receive because the life, light, and strength of our will was missing. We will hear in her our echo, the creative strength that always generates love and glory, the continuous repetition of our acts and of our own life. This is the life of our fiat, to generate. And where it reigns, it generates continuously, without ever ending. Generates in us and keeps the life of the most holy Trinity. Generates in the creature in which it reigns. Generates our image, love, and sanctity. So we still have a lot to do in the work of creation. We have to reproduce our acts and works, which will serve as the most beautiful ornament for our heavenly fatherland. After this, my mind got lost in the ocean of the fiat, which made me aware of everything, and all seemed to belong to me as well as to God. Then my beloved Jesus, almost suffocated in his flames of love, added, "My blessed daughter, One who lives in my will has always been inseparable from her Creator. She was with us from all eternity. Our divine will brought her to our laps to love, court, and enjoy her. And since then, we have felt her love palpitating in us, calling for the work of our creative hands to make of her one of our best images. Oh, how much we delighted in finding in our will someone in whom we could express our creativity. Now you must know that since these souls that live and will live in our fiat are inseparable from us, they were coming down with me when I, the eternal Word, came down from heaven to earth in the excess of my love. They were guided by the heavenly Queen. They formed my people, my loyal army, my living royal palace, in which I was true king of these children of my divine will. I would never have come down from heaven without the court of my people, without a reign in which I could dominate with my laws of love. All the centuries are just like a point for us, in which everything is ours in action. Therefore, when I came down from heaven as dominator and king of my children, I felt courted and loved, as only we can do. And my love was such that my children were all conceived together with me. I just couldn't be without them. I couldn't have tolerated not finding my loving children. So they grew with me in the womb of my queen mother. They were born together with me, cried with me, did everything I did. They walked, worked, prayed, and suffered together with me. And I can say that they were with me even on my cross to die and rise again to new life for human generations. Therefore, the kingdom of our will is already established. We know its numbers. We know them all by name. We already feel them palpitating in ardent love. Oh, how much we love them and yearn for the time to deliver them into the daylight of our will on earth. Then the children of my volition will have in their power my conception, my birth, my steps, pains, and tears. They will be able to be conceived and born again as many times as they want. They will fill my steps and pains in theirs. Since in my will, my birth and life are repeated every instant. They can take them for themselves, give them to others, or do whatever they want. I know that they would never do what I do not want. These children of ours, born again, formed and fed by our will be the true glory of our creation. They will crown our creative work, placing the seal of their love in every created thing for the one who did all for them and loved them so much. Fiat. Oh my gosh!
This is such a brilliant reading.
You just want to cry when you're reading it.
Yes. Yes.
So you can't change. That's why I said you were there always. You were always there for him. He wouldn't have come down without us.
It's just because he wants it.
Just because he wants it. He knows their names. He knows how many there will be. There's no guessing. He knows who they are. He calls the creatures because he knows who they are. We were already disposed.
It's already established.
It's already established. It's familiar. That's what's amazing is that we're familiar with each other without even knowing we're familiar with each other. And you can feel it in other people's souls. You feel them. You're magnetized to each other because you know who you are. And that's why he says there's no fishing. There's nothing for us to go out and do. He knows their numbers. He knows who they are. He calls the creature. We don't do anything. He calls them. Or he'll bring them to where in our light and we'll say something. And then, obviously that's what happened to John.
Yep.
Somebody said something and you just knew it.
Yep, it's where I need to be. It's my next step.
Yeah. This is who I've always been.
Yeah. And I don't think that any of us get here late or
Or
should have got here 20 years ago,
Right,
you know.
right.
It's whenever that,
Well, because you were always here.
yes, you were
Yeah.
always here. But when you were here, but you maybe didn't know it. You know what I'm saying?
But
Right.
you were being disposed, I think. I think
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
was.
Right, that's what I was
disposed.
saying. So if you look at the first 10 volumes, Luis is being disposed. Well, you can't pick your time in life. He
Right.
was disposing you to the
Right.
point that you said yes.
Yeah.
And then you had to learn to what you were disposed to, but you said yes. So you can never, I love it when he says, too late. You can't take it back. You said, and the question is that you said yes in time, but obviously you said yes in the womb of the Creator.
You've said that before.
You said that before. You were chosen before to come out during this time. Now. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I mean, you could just, this is one of those readings where you just drop the mic and like, just read this over and over and over again if you ever doubt.
That's right.
Because we know its numbers. We know them all by name. We already feel them palpitating in ardent love. I love Mills reading that one, that January one, because it talks about the before and after Adam fell. So I don't know if we have time to read it, but it's important that people read it, especially after this one, because there is, after Adam fell.
We can read it.
Okay.
We have 20 minutes, so we'll read it here.
We're gonna read yours, Mel. January.
January 28th, 1926. January 28th,
It's volume 18.
volume 18. Thank you, Judy.
I do love it when we get into these higher readings, because this is, you see where she couldn't start off with this. This had to be like 1938. It couldn't be 1900. And it's also, it makes you laugh on how Jesus. How do I say this? You love him, but the same thing. It's like, well, you always knew. It took me forever, but you always knew.
But he's been planning. this
Yes.
all along.
And it's his jealous love of you that even though we look back and like Anne Marie said, you can't say, well, 20 years ago or 5 years ago, or there isn't any of that, because he jealously loved you. In that 1938 reading, he's jealously loved you all of your life and has protected you all of your life so that because he was going to call you to the time that you needed to be called.
I'm reminded of something Father John said on the videos too that you've been quoting a lot lately, right? And I'm gonna say it wrong, but it's something like, if you're understanding these readings, it's a sure sign that you're.
Yeah.
What was it?
He says if you are sitting here listening to the knowledges,
Yeah.
it's a sure sign that you live in the kingdom.
Yeah.
If you're understanding the knowledges, you're in the 4th degree.
Right.
Because you want to understand them, and therefore Jesus gets you there.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. I feel like when we get these new knowledges, I don't know. To me, they're not such crazy, groundbreaking thing. I mean, they're like, they're.
Yeah.
There's yes, I couldn't have quoted you that 30 seconds ago, but in my soul, I knew that of course this is the way Jesus is
Yeah.
Well,
operating.
I like
This
that.
is the
what
way
you're
he does
describing,
things.
though, is infused knowledge.
Yeah.
Because you two that have come in fairly recently I see a lot of growth and I see a lot of infused knowledge in you, and you can that's just, from someone who has had to learn it, read it, but it doesn't matter. It's all good. It's great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I feel like when you say you knew this in the womb of, and you said yes, and it's like speaking to my soul, like, oh yes, I've heard this from eternity.
Yeah.
From all eternity, yeah.
Familiar.
You're just reaffirming. It's just coming back to familiarize itself again, because it's been sitting dormant, to say, right? But not really,
For lack of a
because.
better word.
Oh my gosh, when he says that you came, I would not have come down to be incarnated, and my mother without my children with me. Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and read this reading.
All right, Mel, you want to read this next reading? January 28th, 1926?
Sure. After sin, Adam did the same act as before, But because he had withdrawn from the supreme will, they were empty of the substance of divine life. The humanity of Jesus, the tree of life, which will produce the fruit of the fiat voluntas tua on earth as it is in heaven. I was thinking about the holy divine volition, and I thought to myself, how can it be that Adam, after sin, having broken his will from that of God, lost strength, dominion, and his acts were not so pleasing to God as to form his delight? Indeed, before sinning, Adam had done his acts toward God. He had learned them. Why then, in repeating them afterwards, they no longer sounded the same sound? They no longer contained the fullness of divine love and the complete glory of God. Now, while I was thinking this, my lovable Jesus moved in my interior, and through a light that he sent to me, told me, my daughter, first of all, before Adam withdrew from my will, Adam was my son. He contained my will as the center of his life and of all his acts. Therefore, he possessed a strength, a dominion, and attractiveness which was all divine. His breath, his heartbeat, his acts gave of divine. All of his being gave off a celestial fragrance which drew us all toward him. So we felt wounded from all sides by this son. If he breathed, if he spoke, if he did even the most innocent, indifferent, and natural things, those were wounds of love for us. And we, amusing ourselves with him, filled him more and more with our goods, because everything he did came from one single point, which was our will. Therefore we liked him all. We found nothing which might displease us. Now after sin, Adam descended from the state of son and reduced himself to the state of servant. And as soon as he broke up with the supreme will, the divine strength, the dominion, the attractiveness, the celestial fragrance went out of him. Therefore his acts, his being, no longer gave of divine, but were filled with a human sensation, which making him lose attractiveness, caused that we no longer felt wounded, but rather we kept our distance, he from us and we from him. His repeating the same acts as those he did before sinning, as in fact he did, says nothing. But do you know what the acts of the creature are without the fullness of our will? They are like foods without condiments and without substance, which, instead of being enjoyed, disgust the human palate. And so do they disgust the divine palate. They are like those unripe fruits, which contain neither sweetness nor taste. They are like those flowers without fragrance. They are like those vases which are full, yes, but of old, fragile, and ragged things. All this can serve a strict necessity of man, and may be a shade of the glory of God, but not the happiness and the complete well-being of the creature and the fullness of the glory of God. Now, on the other hand, with what pleasure does one not eat of food which is well flavored and nourishing? How it strengthens the whole person. The mere smell of its condiment whets one's appetite and the eagerness to eat it. In the same way, before sinning, Adam flavored all of his acts with the substance of our will, and therefore he whetted the appetite of our love to take all his acts as the most enjoyable food for us. And we, in return, gave him our delicious food, our will. But after sin, poor one, he lost the direct way of communication with his Creator. Pure love was no longer reigning in him. Love was divided by apprehension, by fear, and since he no longer contained the absolute dominion of the supreme will, his acts of before, done after sin, no longer had the same value. More so, since the whole creation, including man, came out of the eternal Creator as their source of life, in which they were to be preserved only with the life of the divine will. Everything was to be founded upon it, and this foundation of the divine will was to preserve all things as beautiful and noble, just as they had come out of God. And in fact, all created things are just as they were created. None of them has lost anything of its origin. Only man lost the life, the foundation, and therefore he lost his nobility, the strength, and the likeness to his Creator. But in spite of this, my will did not leave man completely, unable to still be his source of life and the foundation that would sustain him, because he himself had withdrawn from it. It offered itself as medicine, so that he might not perish completely. So my will is medicine, is sanity, is preservation, is food, is life, is fullness of the highest sanctity. In whatever way the Creator wants the creature, in whatever way the creature wants it, so does it offer itself. If she wants it as medicine, it offers itself in order to take away from her the fever of passions, the weaknesses of impatience, the vertigo of pride, the sickliness of attachments, and so with all the rest of evils. If she wants it as sanity, it offers itself to preserve her healthy, to free her from any spiritual illness. If she wants it as food, it gives itself as food to make her strengths develop and grow more in sanctity. If she wants it as life and as fullness of sanctity, oh, then my will makes feast, because it sees man returning into the womb of his origin, from which he came, and it offers itself to give him the likeness of his Creator, the only purpose of his creation. My will never leaves man. If it left him, he would resolve into nothing. And if man does not give himself to letting my will make him a saint, my will uses the ways to at least save him. On hearing this, I said to myself, Jesus, my love, if you love so much that your will operate in the creature as in the act in which you created her, as if there had been no fracture between your will and that of the creature, why, in coming upon earth to redeem us, did you not give us this great good, that your will, triumphant of everything, would place us in the order of creation, just as we came out of the hands of our celestial Father? And Jesus, coming out from my interior, pressed me all to his heart, and with unspeakable tenderness told me, my daughter, the primary purpose of my coming upon earth was indeed this one, that man would return into the womb of my will, as he came out of it when he was created. But in order to do this, I had to form, by means of my humanity, the root, the trunk, the branches, the leaves, the flowers, from which the celestial fruits of my will were to come out. No one can have the fruit without the tree. This tree was watered by my blood. It was cultivated by my pains, by my sighs and tears. The sun which shone upon it was the sun of my will alone. Therefore, the fruits of my will certainly come. But in order to desire the fruits, one must know how precious they are, the good which they bring, the riches they produce. Here is the reason, then, for the many manifestations of my will, which I have made to you. In fact, knowledge will bring the desire to eat it. And once they have enjoyed what it means to live only to do my will, if not all, at least part of them will return to the path of my volition. The two wills will exchange the perennial kiss. There will be no more dispute between human will and that of the Creator. And after the many fruits it has given, my redemption will give also the fruit of the fiat voluntas tua on earth as it is in heaven. Therefore you, be the first one to take this fruit, and want no other food, nor any other life, but my will alone.
Fantastic.
It's a fantastic reading.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, it's a fantastic reading.
It's interesting that in all of the, it was just this morning that I got your email that said, hey, send us in your favorite readings. Of all the people that were in there, we all sent in our favorite readings. And yet, as we've now come to the end of these, the string that is woven between all of them is the similar strings are within all of them. It's
Yes.
pretty phenomenal.
Yes.
Yeah. No mistakes in God's world, you know.
No, not at all.
No.
They hold hands.
They hold hands. Yes.
So this one with Adam. So now after sin, Adam descended from the state of son and reduced himself to the state of servant. So he could no longer go back to the state of son. Okay? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this with all you guys here by me. So then he says the most that those who have descended from the state of son into servant is that they can become saved, or they can become saint, but they can never go back to being children of light. All right? In that 1938 reading, you knew that you were always children of light. You never descended into being just a servant, because you can't go back. You can't go from descendant. You cannot go to servant back to son. That's what he is saying. When Adam fell, he could not go back to son. He fell into servant. The children of light have always been children of light. All right, but then he says, he talks about the fruits of the tree. So creation, I say, is the roots of the tree. The trunk of the tree and the branches of the tree are redemption, and sanctification is the fruits. Because he says, what does he say? Your desires, knowledge will bring the desire to eat it, the fruits, knowledge, all right? But something triggered, as someone just said, I was just standing in a Catholic bookstore and someone said divine will, and I immediately turned to them and said, I want to go. What is it? And I've never looked back. And that's all they said was divine will. They didn't call it a prayer meeting. They didn't call it a Bible study. They said divine will. And he says that in another reading, that the words divine will itself brings so much light. But that's what attracted me to start wanting to know the knowledges of it. And the knowledge brings the desire to eat it. So you just keep going around and around and around. Okay, but he said, I thought this was interesting and I should highlight it. See if I can find it again, where he distinguishes those who said yes to the will and then those who say, when he talks about the sanctification. Forgive me, let's see if we can find this. When he talks about the three, the medicine.
Okay. Yeah, he says, so my will is medicine, is sanctity, is preservation,
Okay.
is food, is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Is life, is fullness of the highest sanctity.
Okay, so this is interesting when he says, all right, but in spite of this, my will did not leave man completely, which it couldn't, because man would not be breathing if it didn't have the divine will inside of him. Unable to still be his source of life and the foundation that would sustain him, because he himself had withdrawn from it, it offered itself as medicine so that he might not perish completely. So my will is medicine, is sanity, is preservation, is food, is life, is fullness of the highest sanctity, in whatever way the creature wants it. So does it offer itself. If she wants it as medicine, it offers itself in order to take away from her the fever of passions, the weaknesses of impatience, the vertigo of pride, the sickliness of attachments, and so with all the rest of evils. If she wants it as sanity, it offers itself to preserve her healthy, to free her from any spiritual illness. If she wants it as food, it gives itself as food to make her strengths develop and grow more in sanctity. If she wants it as life and as fullness of sanctity, then my will makes feast, because it sees man returning into the womb of his origin from which he came. Back into the womb before Adam fell.
And continuing, it offers itself to give him the likeness of his creator, the only purpose of his creation.
Yeah,
That's why Mel likes this one. This is his OP.
yeah, this is his OPP.
OPP.
No, you're absolutely right, and I was just going to throw in there that it's obviously not by coincidence that Jesus has got the subtitle of the Book of Heaven to be the return of the creature. They call the creature to the return to the order, the place, and the purpose which it was created. There's also one of the things that we today have the benefit of is all of these volumes, and as we have done, we can move around by however we want to search them. The technology that exists. Louisa was going through it as she went through it, and as she's written it, and she didn't have the benefit of knowing what he was going to tell her in 1935 when she was writing in 1902. And my point in saying that is there can be times, I know myself have experienced this, there can be times when as we listen to a reading, some of it can make sense, and some of it we go, wow, it's a little bit above me, and I'm scratching my head. But the main point is something that we said at the very beginning, is to always read and continue to read and continue to trust and to have the faith that you're going to, an individual, me, you, whoever's out there, will have the at the time that it's right, that knowledge is going to be unlocked. So even if we go into the upper readings in the 30s and in the 20s and the high teens or whatever, depending upon where a person is, I have sometimes when I just make sure I'm not being challenged mentally by some of these writings because I don't know about it, or there's topics that I don't quite understand. It's just important, I think, to reiterate to just, we always have an open mind and know that knowledge is ultimately going to come to us as long as we continue to read and we continue to learn and to study about it. So that's been helpful for me, that as we move back and forth in the order of the volumes, we have the great benefit. We're the great beneficiaries of having it all there in front of us, rather than as Louisa was doing it, she was just getting it date by date by date and volume by volume.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, indeed.
And I did like the fact that we did it in 1938, then you went back here, because it sheds more light on the one of this, and because we just read it last week, and it sheds more light on this reading on.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yes. Well, that's how knowledge works. It builds, it continues to build, and as long as you just keep saying, "I want to learn," and we know that cycle. The more we want, the more he teaches us. The more he teaches us, the more we want. The more we want, the more we get. So it's a beautiful cycle.
Okay, well, if there's no more, we'll go ahead and close and call down the kingdom. So descend, O supreme will, come to reign upon the earth. Descend, O supreme will, come to reign upon the earth. Descend, O supreme will, come to reign upon the earth. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Father, I thank you, because you always hear me. I ask of you only this, that through the intercession of Jesus, your beloved Son, of Mary, his most holy mother, and Louisa, your little daughter of the divine will, to send down upon the earth, with all its glory and justice, your sanctifying fiat, the kingdom of your divine volition, to pour out the fullness of your love in the poor human will, for your honor and your glory only. Amen. May the will of the Father made known to the Son by the power of the Holy Spirit reign in me.
Goodbye, guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Talk to you later.
Have a good
Okay.
trip.
All right.
Bye.